on to our next session, in which we have a panel of 3 distinguished speakers who will discuss the environment for enterprise in Egypt with a close focus on the impact of COVID. We have with us Mohammed Youssef, CEO of Decode for Economic and Financial Consulting. We have Winslow Sargent, the incoming president of the International Council for Small Business, and Hala Barakat, the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at AUC School of Business. Welcome to you all. Can I invite each of you to speak for 5 minutes? Then we'll have a short discussion. Mr. Mohammed Youssef first.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heba. Thank you for inviting me to this important event. I'm both honored and at the same time intimidated by, by being part of such a great panel and great speakers. I myself been a student to Dr. Sharif Kamel, so that's in itself is an honor to be part of that, and been part also with Dr. Youssef's team in different ministries. In order for me to start my talk, I'm going to share a very few slides on a presentation, so I'm going to share it now. I think it was duly discussed in terms of the effect of COVID on the global economy. We'll look closer, and I hope you bear with me. I know for the sake of time, I'm going to go really quickly on the first slide when we're talking about Egypt's economy, but the presentation is there. It could be shared with all of the attendees. And at the same time, I'm available for any questions. Really quickly, what happened right before the pandemic has hit was already where we're seeing certain slowdown in activity. Of course, there was a boost by the economic reform measures that were taken. However, by the end of 2019, there were already a kind of normalization to that positive effect. Of course, the pandemic hit, and it was a dual shock that exacerbated the problem. And right away, there was already signs of higher unemployment and increase in the cost of living. That in itself has affected the consumption. We're looking at the period since March, since the pandemic started until now, and what has happened during that period really quickly. So of course the consumption has been lowered. There was a change in spending patterns, and that also was reflected in businesses as well. Because of the deterioration of the operating conditions, the lockdown measures that were taken, that already gave a hit right away. But even after that, and because of the fatigue and because of the consumption levels that been lowered because of depleting the savings of consumers, already that's been reflected in businesses as well in terms of weak purchasing activities and other business. In investment, it was the same case, lower investment, whether public or private. And on the exports and imports, we have seen both. What helped the balance of trade was already a slowdown in exports and slowdown in imports, so they balance each other. In terms of the government measures, here are the measures that were taken since the pandemic until now. So they are combined, but of course the initial measures that were taken in terms of fiscal policy, there was a tendency to consolidation. So there were VAT amendments, the salaries tax that was put at 1%. There were development fees, there were electricity prices, metro ticket prices increase as well, and a controlled spending on the fiscal front. In terms of the safety net, and that was another measure that were taken right away, was to increase the spending on Takaful and Karama, doing the consumption initiative and helping seasonal workers. The stimulus, when it came to businesses, there were several measures that were taken right away, right after March happened, but that was for a period of time of like 3 to 4 months. But of course, the cutting of interest rate, there's always a question mark whether that was enough or not. But it was part in order to stimulate the businesses to get loans. The subsidized loans, the stimulus package, of course, that was announced in the beginning of the pandemic, tax holidays, the debt relief, and decrease in the industry utility prices. In public investment, and I think that helped also one important sector that we're going to talk about, construction and building. The continuation of the execution of the mega projects from the public domain, and the ongoing government investment on that. On the trade front, it was announced several times that there's going to be speeding up to the export subsidy for companies that has not been able to get their money on time. Sorry. Okay, so I think that resonates with what Dr. Yusuf was saying about the destruction, because that's exactly what we are witnessing currently. I think Joseph Schumpeter put it really beautifully, and he's the one behind the whole idea of entrepreneurship in general, which relates also to what he mentioned as whenever there's a destruction, usually there is an business cycle. That's when innovation happens. Whenever there is a downturn in the economy, there are certain enterprises that are not resilient enough to continue. They are going to disappear, and another innovative set of enterprises are going to be appearing in the economy. And I think that's what is currently happening in the global economy and in the local economy as well. In terms of policy actions, and I think also Dr. Yusuf had dwelled enough on that, what I wanted to just share with you are the different measures. In situations like this, you start by mitigating, by trying to assist all of the businesses in the economy, but you always have to balance between who to assist and whether this assistance is going to be for how much time. Because that would put a burden on the fiscal front if it continued on, and could even lead for more government intervention in the economy, which is not something that is preferable in the future. In terms of also happening at the same time, there are already opportunities that are presenting themselves really clearly, and I think I'm going to touch quickly on the kind of sectors that are seeing these kind of opportunities. But already we have seen companies, and I think the ones that are going to be presented in the award is a great representation for this. They have taken advantage in terms of the opportunities that presented themselves, whether creating new products or innovating in already existing ones, or entering and trying to lower cost by using less office spaces and using working from home. What we at Decode did was a quick analysis. Once the pandemic was hit, we were trying to look into what sectors could be potentially negatively affected by the pandemic and the lockdown measures that happened after the pandemic itself, and who could be the potential winners. That picture has already changed a little bit when now that we're almost a year since the pandemic. But of course, we're already very, I think, obvious that in terms of tourism, the aviation, maritime, automotives, these are all sectors that were greatly affected once the pandemic hit. Construction and real estate in the beginning, of course, was hit. Currently, we're seeing a recovery, and it is driven majorly by the country's mega projects that are taking place. Manufacturing, in terms of non-essentials, that already seen a hit. Financial services, education, oil and gas. When we look into the potential winners, and that resonates also with what was discussed in the questions that were asked, we're talking about agriculture in a way was already, because of the consumption increase after the pandemic in terms of food and beverages. So agriculture and food and agri-food and food and F&B were on the winner's side. Of course, the e-commerce, the digitalization, the ICT, the healthcare, and all of that were already potential winners out of the pandemic, and there were several opportunities that presented themselves in the years to come. When it comes to the problems faced by entrepreneurs, we always have seen in Egypt, I mean, they have been resilient enough to take all and every hit, and they are also continuing still. And sometimes with when it comes to policy measures, sometimes doing nothing is a policy in itself, and it could prevent it would be less harm than actually trying to put policies and measures that would put a burden on entrepreneurs. And by that I conclude, and I hope if there are any questions, I'm very much willing to answer them all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can we move to the next speaker? Can I invite Dr. Winslow Sargent? And then we'll take questions afterwards.
Greetings. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I bring you greetings on behalf of ICSB President Ahmed Osman. He passed on his regrets. He wasn't able to attend this distinguished panel, so I've joined in his honor. I am Winslow Sargent, the incoming chair for the International Council for Small Business. I'm also the former chief counsel for advocacy at the U.S. Small Business Administration. I served from 2010 to 2015 under the Obama administration, where I served in the capacity as the chief advocate for the United States, where I advocated for all small businesses. This is at the International Council of Small Business. This is a time for us where we see that small businesses have been severely impacted by COVID-19, especially within the emerging markets like Egypt. We see one of the big disruptions we saw right away was the impact on supply chains because of the lockdown, because there wasn't this movement across borders. We really saw the disruption in supply chains, and what that did, that gave an opportunity for SMEs to really fill the void. Previous to that point, there was a focus on globalization, and as Dr. Yusuf pointed out, that China was the manufacturer for the world, which of course that supplied goods, but also cheaper goods, and it put a lot of small businesses out of business. But due to COVID-19, because of the lack of movement, it forced business and solutions to be looked internally. And so in Egypt, for example, those things like masks or supplies or goggles or things that people had to use and may not have been able to get access to, small businesses and entrepreneurs, they were able to fill the void. And so we're seeing more of that. We know that the entrepreneur is forward-looking, is an optimist by nature. To start a business in any time, you have to be optimistic. But the entrepreneurs that we saw, especially those who have aligned with the International Council for Small Business, they have tapped into their strength, and some of their strength revolve around the digital economy. And in the fourth industrial revolution, where we see the confluence of digital and health and social coming together, we expect to see more of that. And so there are a few things that really stand out. One, the need to have the infrastructure. So when we think of a private-public partnership with the government, with each government, it's important that the government builds the infrastructure so that broadband is available for those companies that need to get to their customer. It's hard to we're not seeing the customer come to the business. We're seeing businesses or products go to customers. And for that to happen, that means one, you must have a web presence. And so going forward, we encourage all the SMEs to build a digital capacity, because for them to, one, to market their products, two, to get the best and brightest employees, but also to get access to their customers, and also in terms of payment systems, fintech is the norm. And so as we move forward, we're seeing more of these things. And so we're encouraged in terms of what we're seeing. I was recently in Egypt, in Aswan, and I saw the gathering of entrepreneurs coming together in terms of looking at some of the local things that can be done to serve that market. One of the things that will strengthen Egypt going forward is that because it's a very young society and it's a very talented society that understands how to use the digital marketing and digital economy. I also would encourage governments to have this private-public partnership. We're seeing more that those companies that have relationships with the government, especially in procurement. In the United States, there is a provision that 23% of government spend is targeted at the SME market. And so that's also a way that the government can work with entrepreneurs and work with those businesses, because the needs of the government can be met by those small businesses. And so we look forward to going forward in terms of what can be done. And my last point, we're also seeing what we describe as humane entrepreneurship. This is a concept that for you to empower your employee to have a business that's sustainable. We talk about the SDG goals, and also to build a base where that you are a good player within the community. It's not just about profits alone, because that's just not sustainable. You need to have the worker, you need to have the products, but also you need to have the community. And so we're big advocates of humane entrepreneurship. And we see going forward that these pandemics are not going to be once in a century. They could be once in a decade. So we must build in the resiliency going forward so that we can build a strong economy. Two out of every 3 net new jobs are created by SMEs. And for economies to grow, we must support this sector. And so I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Good. Dr. Hala?
Thank you so much, Heba. Actually, thank you so much for the introduction, and it has been an honor to be here along with esteemed guest speakers and to share some thoughts in the Business Forward annual event. I'm sure that many of us usually have ideas and solutions to every encounter that we face in our daily lives, but why that some of us are able to bring those ideas to life and move them forward. I believe entrepreneurs simply focus on what they want, and they don't focus on the obstacles and the problems that they face in order to reach what they really want at the end of the line. For example, if you can imagine a marathon, at the end of the marathon, there is a sponsor booth with cold drinks. An entrepreneur will focus on to get the cold drink at the end, but anyone else will just see the obstacles, which is the long waiting line to reach that drink. In the COVID-19 era, this waiting line and obstacles that have been faced by entrepreneurs have been tremendous. And the big questions that we have been asking the past year in this spectrum is that how these startups can survive, how they can sustain this crisis, how they realize their aspiration at the end. Can they really be comfortable and resilient enough to work with all this uncertainty? I believe entrepreneurs and startups in Egypt and in the region, because they mainly originate from markets that are largely defined by ongoing high risk and uncertainty, they have really performed well enough. It's no secret that startups in Egypt, they couldn't make it. Some of them could not make it through the pandemic. Others have scaled their operation to the bare minimum to have a workable business models, while they were trying to ride the storm of the issues that they have been facing in the past year. As Mohammed said in the presentation, startups are not equal in the face of this pandemic. Yani we have seen some sectors that surge, especially sectors that have been dealing with digital solutions, online services, e-commerce, delivery, and other sectors, unfortunately, have been hit hard, like companies and startups that have been working on travel, hospitality, and any physical presence, restaurants, F&B. However, in both cases, surviving during the pandemic, from my point of view, actually required resourceful teams. We have seen teams that were able to sustain this operation with very limited resources have been done quite well during the past year. They have been swiftly, they reinvented their business models. They worked through the bare minimum sales they have been seen throughout the year. However, what is the good thing about it is that, as Dr. Boutros mentioned as well, is that at a time of crisis, we all see innovation. But innovation and creative solutions have raised during the past year. But we have seen that we have been functioning well. Yani we have adapted on the online learning, adapted working from home, even dining out in the restaurants have been replaced with the grocery and delivery services. We have been working on Zoom. Even our healthcare support system are been occurring on our screens, on telemedicines. But the true essence here of entrepreneurship is that they have identified through the past year the unmet needs, and they have moved very fast and possible to get the needed product to the market. What they have achieved in the past year concerning the digital revolution would have been seen in the past 10 years. But we have been hit hard by the fourth industrial revolution in the past year. Technology have touched all our operations, whether in education, financial technology, commerce platform. But it's the silver lining of the pandemic that it has really propelled the technological adaptation to our market and our society. The other point that I want to make is that the entrepreneurship education remains very relevant and much needed these days more than ever. We have a greater need to embed the entrepreneurial spirit, not only in the standalone entrepreneurship subjects, but in all our management education. We need to help our focus to build the entrepreneurial mindset. We need to stretch definitely our curricular and the co-curricular activities. For example, at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, when the pandemic hit early in March, we thought about hosting a hackathon, inviting regional students to come up with the solution post the pandemic. And we were very cautious and worried that we will not get much attention to it. However, we were overwhelmed with great participation, coming up with marvelous solution, and it was really impactful. Also, this innovative and virtual platforms where we conducted the incubators, accelerators, and our operations. These platforms offer rich case studies that we could use for teaching future generations how to better prepare for crises. And what we're actually doing early next year at the center is that we will host an international case competition, bringing one of a regional case study from a startup, and with that we will engage international students to work on it. It's very easy to focus on the negative from the past year. However, we have to remain positive and look at the silver lining, that what we have learned in the past. We should keep on supporting the entrepreneurship ecosystem to keep on driving innovation for the collective well-being of our society. My final words is that doing business is not about winning or losing, or it's not a tennis game. It's a creative process where we should think about it as a big Lego that we are building, changing, and adapting to it. So we have to keep on building, and that we have to have this point in mind, is that nothing is perfect and it's always a work in progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our three speakers. What I suggest we do now is I'm going to ask you all a question, same question to everyone. And if there is time, we'll also take questions from the audience. So I encourage people to send questions to the Q&A function on Zoom, and we'll try to take 2 or 3. So I have one question to everyone, which is, COVID is not over yet and may not be over for a few months. So how do you see 2021 shaping up for small businesses in Egypt and for entrepreneurship in Egypt? And if there is one thing top of your list that you would like the government to do to help small businesses, what would that be? And can we go in the same order? So we'll start with Mohammed Youssef.
Well, short answer, do nothing. I always refer to the situation after 2011, and after that period, although there wasn't, very well structured policy in terms of assisting businesses, when you look into the data, you'll find that they have thrived very finely. Sometimes it's better not, as long as it works, do not intervene. Interventions, if it happens, has to be on the level of service providers to entrepreneurs rather than direct intervention with entrepreneurs. Usually governments do not perform well when they are providing services.
So people should sink or swim on their own steam. And what does the data tell you about 2021? Will they be swimming? Will more be sinking?
Well, that is the issue. I mean, when you look into the recent laws, I would say that have been enacted, they are not very helpful to the private sector. It is directed toward fiscal consolidation, like I said. So we're talking about not an increase to taxes, but there's an increase in burden overall on businesses in general. They will definitely be floating. I mean, the kind of resilience that's been shown in different, we've been in crisis for quite some time. People and businesses surviving for that period of time would make you feel comfortable to say that definitely they're gonna swim. That's for sure.
Thank you. And can I invite Winslow Sargent?
Well, this is a really good question, and I guess that I would seeing going forward in terms of 2021. I think it's important in terms of this public-private partnership that the government plays. It needs to really be. We need to put some structure to it. For example, I think that government needs to find a way to simplify business registration and facilitate the formalization of those businesses that are in the informal sector. It's high time that we encourage more businesses to formalize, because there are many benefits to both the business itself now, because these businesses are able to have a bank account and be able to compete for, I talk about these government contracts on the procurement side, but also government will now have a tax base and be able to track and support these businesses. 2, we need to find a way to increase the financial literacy for these businesses with e-commerce and understanding how to access the customer and access the financial institution, but that comes through formalization. 3, we have to find a way to make sure that technology is available to those businesses to have a web presence. And so building up the infrastructure and access to markets. That's very, very important. And the last part that I think that's very, very important, and it ties into it, is to identify these key industries and these key sectors that are national in scope. We saw in terms of with globalization, when borders closed, it created a disruption in terms of supplies. Well, those talents and those know-how, they exist within Egypt. And so we need to encourage those that can make the sanitizers, make the products to bring them out and says, we need you. You are going to be a key source for the nation. And so those businesses should be supported.
Thank you. Dr. Hala?
Thank you, Reda. I believe that what we will see today will definitely affect the perception of entrepreneurship in the future or next year. If we are leaving it, it's a double-edged thing actually. If we are not celebrating the efforts of entrepreneurship and startup and giving them enough support and encouragement, actually others will not be attracting right talents to enter into new ventures next year. It's very risky to encourage people to have this risk appetite to meet the needs of the society and fill the market gaps, what's needed to serve the economy. I believe that we should encourage entrepreneurship as a job choice, being in a country that we have like a high rate of unemployment, so that people will not be shy from venturing into new ideas next year. Otherwise, we should celebrate role models actually who have done it. Like this event, it's all about celebrating role models, entrepreneurs and startups, and how they really made use of the crisis and turn it into an opportunity that they have been moving forward towards growth and attracting more businesses and serving the society and the economy at large.
On the national level, what would actually encourage more people to take up entrepreneurship? Given, of course, that entrepreneurship is something that requires skills and it requires funds.
I think awareness is still much needed. Any number of programs provided throughout universities, public institutions, private efforts, and of course, awareness of the importance of entrepreneurship, the outreach, the targeting of, especially in all over the governorates in Egypt, you need to attract the right targets where you know that these beneficiaries actually can sustain the business. It's not just that they're taking a training or they're being incubated and there are long-term effect on the economy. Awareness and support from at a national level from the government is definitely needed. Also at a national level, we need collaboration because there are lots of players in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship, as everyone is playing on his own. We need a national collaboration to have everything in one place, one reference that we can rely on, so that we don't reinvent the wheel every time anyone deal into a new program or initiative in the ecosystem.
Right. Do we have any questions from the audience? I see one question from Jasmine Khalil, and she's asking, how do you see startups working on international markets? I assume she means by going to international markets. Will it help in funding?
Well, I think the great thing about technology is that once you create a website or once you have a digital presence, you actually become an international company. And so that means that you have visibility. Now, the challenge is to get your product or your service. Now, if it's a digital product, then of course you can compete on the international market. But if it's a physical product, then there's more of a challenge. And so those are some of the things that need to be wrestled in. But in terms of access to capital, with e-commerce, with fintech, there are more forums these days that one can get access to capital, especially when you are playing on the international stage.
Right, and we have another question from Sameh Farouk asking about the future of interest rates in banks. Will it be lowered more or will it increase once again? I'm assuming this is about Egypt.
Okay, and I assume that is that's a question also directed because I was talking about interest rates. I mean, that's the $1 million question that everyone is looking for. I mean, they are definitely not going to get higher. That is something that is guaranteed. Or they are going to be lowered. We certainly hope so, because that for sure helps businesses getting more loans. But that depends on a lot of items or a lot of other variables. In how inflation is going to be performing in the coming period is one important factor to take into consideration. However, from what we see, there is actually a decrease in the inflation rates that can actually permit even lowering more the interest rate. So the expectation is definitely it's not going to get higher. Still, there is a big probability that it's definitely going to get lower, especially comparing our interest rate to other countries. We are one of the highest.
Right. And our next question, I think, which is also to you, Mohammed Yusuf, from Hamid Hassoun Al-Birri. He asks, he says he would appreciate it if you share some statistics on the destruction process in Egypt referred to during the presentation. I think that's destruction of value.
Well, I mean, the destruction, we have seen it. I mean, we have to make a distinction here. It's not that necessarily that certain businesses are going to disappear. I mean, that's one level, and it is valid. Again, the way of doing business is going to disappear. One clear example, I would say something like textiles. The first thing that pops in mind, or RMG, or ready-made garments. The one thing that jumps into mind that demand has decreased, so there probably going to be a shift, or at least companies working in ready-made garments are going to close. Well, that could be applicable if they are not adaptable enough. I mean, there are other ways to do business. We are already witnessing a change in the consumer behavior. I mean, right now, because of the working from any more suits, for example. So there should be adaptability from the enterprises in order to overcome this kind of destruction. And now you have very innovative products in the traditional sectors that we know. So instead of doing the suits, you're doing gowns for medical purposes. Technical textiles is also picking up. So it's upon the entrepreneurs to understand where the market is heading and how they can adapt in order to continue working and doing business.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Yusuf, Dr. Hala Barakat, and Dr. Winslow Sargent. And we'll now move to what promises to be a very exciting part of our program today. We're going to screen the 4 videos which received the most audience votes in the campaign, Business Forward's campaign, titled, "This is How I Moved My Business Forward." We will, after the videos, we will speak to the amazing people behind these businesses. We will screen one video, take a question, one video question, and we are going to start with the 4 most voted for video. So shall we move to the videos, please?
So the idea behind With Locals was connecting people, connecting travelers to locals around the world in order to bridge the cultural gap. And we connect them with travelers to give them the opportunity to show their city and give travelers the opportunity to explore and experience a city through the eyes of a local. We started expanding, we started growing, and January 2020 was our best month ever in terms of sales, in terms of number of experiences that and connections that we made between travelers and locals around the world. And then February 2020 was not. How do we pivot? What do we do? The general rule was, you know, if you think it's going to work, try it. Always try it. I mean, as a startup, trial and error is at the heart and the core of everything you do. There was an outlook in travel saying, okay, when people start traveling again, there's going to be domestic travel. So people are not going to travel away from home, but they're going to travel locally. So let's try to find a way to approach the domestic travel market. Another area that we started working on was going virtual. So not everything translates. So we had to make sure that the experience translates. And that's where the interactivity ideas came in. Businesses solved super quickly, that was their priority, for the business continuity issues. But the employee engagement and social connection between teams still, and until today, is still something that companies and teams who are working remotely are struggling with. And that's the space that we said, we're going to occupy this space. We're going to be here. This is what we're going to focus on, and we can really help. So we started developing this product, started testing, started talking to companies and businesses, testing out, working with different companies, trying to get them on board and get them to try this. And it took a while. Agility and flexibility continue to be our best friends forever. I really preach this. I really hope more companies embrace the make more mistakes culture and learn from them, like encourage mistakes. And I hope that over the next year and two, we make new mistakes and learn from them and adapt and move on.
And we have here with us Sharif Abaza. Thank you very much, Sharif. And can we see Sharif? Because I'm not seeing him. Oh, yes. Yes, you're here. Thank you very much. And I have one question for you. Actually, it's two in one, which is post-COVID. How do you see your business developing? Will you keep the virtual aspect? What will it be like? And what's the one lesson that this COVID year has taught you?
So, yeah, thank you for the questions. First off, yes, post-COVID, we really believe that this business model is here to stay. I mean, we've done enough research to know that post-COVID, the remote work situation and the flexible working situation is not going to be much different from what it is now, at least in the US and in Europe. Some other parts of the world are really pushing more for getting back to the office and working in person. But a large portion of the market that's the addressable market for us. I mean, you look at companies like Google, like Dropbox, like General Motors, even in the US, these are companies that are big and have gone virtual first, remote first already. They've announced that no matter what happens, no matter how people decide to go back to the office or not moving forward, they're going to go virtual first, which means a significant portion of the people who work in these companies are going to have the flexibility to choose to be virtual or not. We do believe that the future is going to be hybrid. So there's going to be a large number of people that are going to be having the option to choose to work remotely, and a large number of people that are going to want to go back to the office for the physical connection, for the interaction with their colleagues, and a large portion in between is going to be in between those two. Companies are also going to enjoy the flexibility of being able to have access to talent location independent, which means that companies can hire anywhere in the world and not really look at the geography as a binding factor for where a person is. And that means that virtual interactivity still continues to be, for those companies, a major and very important thing. So yes, they've you know, continued, like I said, and like you heard in the video, business continuity, whether it's Slack or Google Suite or Microsoft Teams or whatever the platform that they're using to engage and interact with each other on a day-to-day basis, that's solved for. But how they interact with each other, you know, how they remain engaged, how they keep how can they stay connected socially, how they stay connected to the company culture and to each other as a team, remote team building and team bonding activities. These are things that companies are going to continue, we believe, are going to continue to need. That's going to evolve, and we're also going to need to evolve with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have the next video, please?
At the Works, we try to do events from different spectrums. So one, we cater to corporate clients. Two, we have our own platforms, which we build and develop. Three, we manage as well content for other conferences. And we do concerts, but outside. Our business is all about networking. Our business is all about people mingling. And our business is all about human interaction. Come COVID, zero human interaction. When it came to clients' events and commissioned events, we came up with solutions. We needed people to connect differently. So when Ramadan came, we came up with solutions for iftars and suhoors where we could actually connect people and give them the iftar experience with the entertainment and everything, having the food arriving at the same time and engaging them in a certain way, and also showing them that everything was clean and done well and protected and safe. And when it came to our platforms, we did two things. We had to, like the rest of the world, move to virtual. We had to do something we were so afraid of doing, which is hold a virtual event. We made sure people would want to come back, because in the end of the day, I'm home. And if the session is not interesting, I'll just close my computer. For the first time, we had viewers from 17 countries. It was mind-blowing. Corona put us all on our toes. And it taught us that nothing is granted, plans have to be made. We ventured into virtual, which is something we knew was there and has been there forever, and we were really scared to venture into, which made us definitely consider the fact that moving forward, it will always be hybrid. We need to exist online for the people who are interested in our content from other countries. The silver lining is, when faced with a pandemic, there's always a way out.
Thank you, May.
Hello?
Are you with us? Yes. Thank you very much. Really fascinating. And I wanted to ask you, you say that we're moving into a hybrid world, and post-pandemic and virtual is still going to be part of your mix. Do you see this as something like the creative summit? Do you see this, the creative industry summit, do you see this as moving online from now on? A lot of people talk about online and how much there will be a place for online, but will there still be a place for a human in person? What do you think?
I think human interaction can never die. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the two things. Let's talk about online and let's talk about human interaction. My business is all about connecting with people. It's all about people mingling and all about people knowing you, networking. So the very fact that it's as an industry, it's dead now, it has to come back. We've seen that in summer. If we talk about Sahel, everybody forgot about Corona and everybody was mingling and connecting. So human connection is needed in life in general. So it will come back one way or another. We will connect either by learning to social distance or learning to work and pivot in the new world order way, but it will come back. So humans will need to connect to live. Yet, when it comes to creative industry, as I said earlier, it's gonna have to be in a way or another hybrid. So there will be the physical presence, and we will exist physically when the times allow, and it will continue to be available on the digital sphere, because honestly, the silver lining is it has opened us up to, the very fact that 17 countries were viewing, remove Egypt, 16 new countries were watching us, then we need to continue and exist on the virtual sphere. It will be hybrid, yes.
Great, thank you very much. And let's move to the next video. And I would like to also invite our panelists to comment. I know I've been asking the questions so far, but if any of our panelists would like to come in, or I will invite you all at the end to comment and to ask questions to the amazing business people who we're hosting today.
I discovered the chimney cakes. I started to speak with the business owners there in Prague. Then when I returned back to Egypt, I started to do my study, my research, my homework. I started to speak with business owners in F&B, started to collect some data. The idea was to start with a food truck. I traveled to Slovenia to take the course there. Pandemic came. After it, I decided to change what I'm doing, that I would start with delivering, and I was against delivering. I took the training in February. I started in March delivering. It was the only option available to start the business. I took it as a way to overcome this situation. So that was the idea, was to send to food bloggers at the beginning to gain trust of people. It was also challenging, to inform the people what is chimney cake. It's a new thing. I woke up in the morning. I started doing the dough itself and started rolling. My sisters, they helped me a lot in it. Then at 4 or 5 p.m., I started delivering it with my driver, and my driver and me and my friends, we went to deliver every day. The food truck, I don't know what should I do with, and it's really expensive. It was like 300,000. So I started contacting people who's working with, real estate companies, because I want to open in Sahel. For startups or for small businesses, it's really hard to approach any big companies like Amar. Even if I'll not win money, I'm building my brand name. And also you get a good deal in the pandemic. I had a prime location there in Marassi. The next step was to search for a place in Cairo. After joining Marassi, everyone gave me the green light to join them. Crocanti is doing good, alhamdulillah, at Arkan. Owning a business, you have to be dedicated 100%, I believe.
Thank you very much, Omar. And let me ask you again, you're a very young entrepreneur. What guided your decision-making?
What guided my decision-making? So my mentor for this was my dad. He helped me a lot with, my dad, he's an entrepreneur, he's an engineer. I'm an engineer, I'm a civil engineer, which helped me a lot in starting my business. I really wanted to start a business. I thought about it a lot. The idea came when I was traveling to Prague. I started discovering a different thing that we don't have in Egypt. And in Egypt also, the F&B sector is really promising in Egypt, because as you know, the pandemic came, the F&B business or the F&B sector wasn't affected, wasn't like, it was the only sector wasn't affected from the pandemic. So I started working on it. It was a new idea. I started doing my homework and research in it. The pandemic came. I was supposed to open the first branch in my university. I'm still an undergraduate student. Everything changed. I have to, as I mentioned in the video, I changed the plan. I started delivering the chimney cakes. I started doing my marketing plan, and everything was changed. So what made me do that is I really wanted to do a different thing, a thing that I have passion in it, which is owning a business. As owning a business and going every day to work now, for me, it's not going to work. It's as if I'm playing a game for me. So I really enjoy what I'm doing, and the pandemic really helped me a lot.
And what do you see? How do you see the business developing post-pandemic?
Post-pandemic, now it's doing well, alhamdulillah. It's I believe the pandemic gave me, like, I'm talking for my business. The pandemic gave me a great push to start my business, and now after, like, people like are getting used to Corona, and they starting like going out and hang out. So post-pandemic, it's doing well, alhamdulillah, because before, like during the pandemic or before the pandemic, as in the start of the pandemic, people were scared to try new things, and they heard about it on the social media. But now post-pandemic, they have the chance to try it.
Right. Thank you very much. And we now move to our last video, the one that received the most votes, the training hub.
احنا واحدة من القطاعات اللي اتأثرت جدا بصورة سلبية مجال التدريب والاستشارات. احنا في تريننج هاب زينا زي كتير من الشركات حصل لينا دروب، لانه اغلب التدريبات بتاعتنا بتتم داخل القاعات، وكان قدامنا ان احنا نتحول الى الزوم تريننج او الاونلاين تريننج، وكل الناس بتعمله. مدارسنا كل اولادنا نايمين دلوقتي على الاونلاين بلاتفورم. لكن احنا اللي عرفنا نعمله واللي فرق فعلا معانا ان احنا عرفنا نعمل هايبرد بورتال يقدر يخلي الناس تاخد التريننج وتبقى انتراكتيف. لازم يخش على هايبر لينك وهو بياخد التريننج ويكليك اسئله مش صعبه، بس كانت بتضمن انه يبقى فولي اتنشن، انه دايما مركز معانا، مش مولع الزوم وبيعمل شاي او نايم. الطريقه دي فرقت قوي مع شركات وبنوك جوه مصر وبره مصر، عملت لنا الحمد لله مش هقول يعني بزنس خلانا ننجح قوي، لكن على الاقل قدرنا نسستين ان احنا نكيب البزنس بتاعنا جوينج. قدرنا نبقى من الشركات اللي كانت التجربه الصعبه ليهم قدروا انهم يخرجوا منها بادد فاليو. اتمنى ان السنه الجايه تبقى على بلدنا وعلى شركتنا وعلى مصر والعالم كله احسن ان شاء الله، وتبقوا في خير وسلام. اشكركم.
Sharif Nasser, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'll invite our panelists to participate and to tell us what caught their attention most about these businesses. But I just want to ask you, this interactive training, do you see yourself going back to in-person training, or will the growth be in the virtual aspect of the business?
First of all, I would like to thank you. It's an honor to be with you. And after this legendary people, starting from Dr. Boutros Ghali to all those successful people, going back to your question, Yes, of course, we will, inshallah, we will be back. And we started already with an distant awareness and social distance activity to start with 20% to training. This physical training is our main training, and that's why I've been deeply affected as one of the sector, as I said in the movie or the small video. Training is the one of the most sector has been badly affected by this pandemic. However, we tried a lot of idea, crazy one, starting from one, my wife got it out of the box, getting the car cinema to deliver training to people within their car and screen training to virtual training. We try all our best to go out of the box, and we created this dual system, or I can call it hybrid online and interactive training to sustain the business. I'm not saying that we are getting huge or we get benefit, but at least we sustain the business. Some threats become an opportunity. Some threats become an opportunity because when we stop the face-to-face training and our potential or targeted customer was only Egypt, we starting our virtual training, and now we are hitting Gulf. So instead of having a small potential customer or target audience within 70 million, our target, or what population we are targeting Egypt, we now are targeting the whole Arab nation. Now we have a customer from Saudi Arabia, from Emirates, from Oman, from Kuwait, and this become an opportunity. And this, I can say it, the threat become an opportunity.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite our three panelists now to comment or to ask questions. We have the four entrepreneurs here, and who would like to start? Dr. Hala?
Yes, Heba, thank you so much. طبعا congratulations, most voted for startups. It's really, we're very, very proud that you have made it forward through the tough times of last year. What I want to comment here is actually a point that maybe will touch base to the event business, the training, and with locals. This might be a little bit away from the F&B. Is that, of course, as we have discussed during the event, is that digital innovation and embedding digital transformation in every aspect of your businesses, trying to move everything online. And as you said, despite it brings you lots of opportunity because it opens you up to the international markets. So if you are a training or you're event organizing, I can use you as a training center. However, I can go and have a training with MIT or an international organization. But I would love to highlight that what have you done regarding this opening up to the international markets? Its competition is tough. Of course, it has opportunity depending on how much you have planned for it and ready to open up, whether it is providing training, whether it is a platform and a platform event, a digital platform for events, whether it is travel and international exposure to traveling and visiting other countries virtually. But it opens up. Now your market is not only Egypt. When you are on a digital platform on the cloud, your market is the whole globe. I wanted to hear from you. What have you done? Have you thought about it? What are your plans to be ready for this tough competition in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hala, for your question. Let me brief it in 3 points. First of all, that we were ready by the digital marketing team. And this was mainly for Egypt. To tell you the truth, we were not ready for the international or the Arab world market, but we had our perfect and professional digital marketing. All what we did, that we direct our campaign and shifted from targeting the Facebook ads or the search engine optimizer to the Egyptian market to make it wider, and we start to hit the Arab world. Yes, of course, there is competition higher, but we have an edge. Our currency, our pricing module, and we have, let me say, one of the best trainer and instructor, not because I'm one of those who deliver in the AUC, but I have a lot of colleagues. They can, being on the international matrix or standard, they're not less than any other instructor or trainer. So we can deliver a good training and consultancy with a better price. That's why, being in a competitive market, yes, of course, we have a lot of competition, but there are pricing module give us a better opportunity.
Thank you. Can I invite May Salama to comment on this, because you're also in the same situation, I understand.
Yes, thank you very much. I would love to. Okay, so Dr. Hala, actually a key driver would be content. And what we did from day one, when we stayed home in March, we did a lot of studying and a lot of research and a lot of watching, and we were like online worms, watching every single piece of content out there, every webinar, every concert, following up with all the news. And there were some challenges. Yani, I have to say, we never expected 17 countries. We were targeting some Arab countries, but we also reached out. Yani, I'll talk to you about how we reached out to some countries, and I'll talk to you about content. So we reached out to networks and partners and people from other countries, and we shared with them the agenda. We shared with them special promo codes and content synopsises so people could be interested to join. But the content, going back to the content had to be a driving factor. People were, in our case, we're never going to come for the money, and we're never going to come for the fact that I have a virtual conference, because they were out there, they were all over the place. So when we looked around, we made sure that, one, the agenda was formulated in a way that was not long, and it gave a little bit of time in the middle where you could just go relax, go to the bathroom, grab something to eat, and come back. But it also had to make you want to come back. And hence, we did touch on matters like COVID, but from a different perspective. We looked at how everyone was saying it, and we tried to say it differently. We tried to, one, stick to our DNA and the nature of being the Creative Industry Summit. So looking at creative ways of handling things, but also talking about current in a new way. So we talked about office solutions, future office solutions, and how can you cater your office to working from home or working from the office with space. We brought on board someone like Sir Martin Sorrell, who has never really, and Rob Riley, who never really spoke to this region. So they were very interesting to this region to see. There was a panel that had 6 people from 6 different countries, ranging from a woman who runs an advertising agency in Riyadh to an ECD from Malaysia. And the topic was quite actually engaging. So we tried as much as possible to make you want to stick around and listen to something new. And that was really the challenge. And it wasn't about our point of view. It was more about consulting. We talk to everybody we know. We ask people abroad and people locally, is this interesting? Would you want to see this? Would you want to see the speaker? And we had to make sure that it was engaging enough. And at the end of every day, there was like a small celebration, you know, the segment where we sang and danced at home and just enjoyed some music. So we needed it to be engaging, and there's a reason to come back. So content.
Thank you very much, May. And if I can also invite Winslow Sargent, would you have any question for our entrepreneurs?
Well, thank you, Heba. This has been fascinating, just listening to the 4 presentations. There are two things that stand out. 2 companies, virtual companies where you can deliver your product online. And then there are 2 food service companies where you have to actually deliver a product to end destinations. And so, but I guess what wraps all 4, we become a logistics type society. We have to deliver a product somehow or a service. And so my question to each one of you is that as you innovate and as you build your base and build your product, how do you protect your brand or your IP? Well, because on the web, everyone's a copycat. Now in Instagram, there's this whole concept of a blue badge, or there's something to say, well, this is the original, so that there are those out there so they're not going to copy you. How do you brand yourself such that your customer and those who want to buy from you or visit your site know that you are the original in terms of what you're doing, and not be fooled by someone else?
So who would like to start by answering? Sharif Abaza, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. So I can jump in, and I think I'll echo something that May was just saying as well, which is I think the content is a major differentiator here. And once you've owned that content, for us at least, once you've owned that content and you've delivered it to the best of your capability. And in our case, that content is very unique. We turned our model of having 2,500 tour guides around the world. Those tour guides were individual people with skill sets, with knowledge, with passions about certain topics. And we took those passions and we took those people and took those topics and converted them into virtual experiences. So now instead of going to Sagrada Familia in Barcelona and having a tour with a sculptor who has her own work in the Sagrada Familia, you're doing a virtual experience with that same person who's taking you through a virtual tour of the Sagrada Familia. Now, this is not something that is easily replicated. You have to have access to that talent. You have to have access to that content in order to be able to do that again. Everything else around that, I think in terms of branding, yes, for sure. But we're also startups. We're in the process of building and developing those brands. And for us, the brand is a spin-off of With Locals, right? With Locals is still at heart a tours and activities and travel company. But with the new With Locals for Business, this new brand that we came up with, you know, it's a work in progress. The name itself can change, but the content and the meat of what we deliver, that's how we protect ourselves from copycats and so on, by ensuring that we're true to the nature of what we set off trying to deliver to our customers around the world.
Thank you, Sharif. And Mohammed Yusuf, would you like to come back, and do you have any comments or questions?
Well, yeah, I have a quick comment, and I'm going to borrow a question that you asked us and present it to the people on the panel. The first comment, it's really obvious now for me that all of the people who presented and the businesses that have been presented, they are all fall under one category that's been studied a lot, which is opportunity entrepreneurs. People who are well educated, they have connections, they have the funding, and they can actually have ideas and can spot opportunities in the market, and they grasp it. Okay, and this type of entrepreneur, or those types of entrepreneur, will actually need certain policy measures when trying to help them versus what we call and say necessity entrepreneurs. So it is very much interesting for me to. I'm going to ask two questions. First of all, I would like to know, the backgrounds. Have any of the people worked in either multinationals from before or not? And because that translates to me into something important for the future as well, that I will tell you about. Second question would be: there's one thing that you want the government to implement in order to help you and I will come back comment on the first question.
Right, so can we have a quick word from each of our business leaders in response to Mohammed Yusuf's questions, and then we'll wrap up. Let's start with Omar Orfi, who we haven't heard from.
Yeah, hello. So my background is I'm a civil engineer. I'm still undergraduate. I study in the German University in Cairo. What do I need from the government to implement? Is a system to help the entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs like me, within like taxes, within like, you know, how much money do you pay to open a new company? And I paid a lot of money to open, like to set up some papers. I have to have like a legal accountant. I have to have a lot of stuff at the beginning, and I'm still young, and I do pay a lot of taxes. And I believe it's not fair that I'm being compared to big companies that I pay the same taxes. So as a help from the government, they should do a certain tax, I don't know, a tax system for young entrepreneurs. I don't know, maybe they put the criteria of the age, the business, but it's not fair to pay that. Like, for me, that's a lot of money to pay for papers, to have a legal accountant, to have to pay the taxes on the profit every year. That's for me a big hassle for me, and for me, I don't know, I don't have the know-how how to do it, to pay the taxes, and it's not easy. So I have to get the legal accountant, and they take a lot of money from it. So that's what I need from the government.
Thank you. And shall we hear from Sharif Nasr on the same question?
Yes, of course. First of all, my background, Muhammad, I was the training head for the retail banking in Barclays before leaving Egypt or being sold to the Moroccan bank. I was the head of training for the retail banking and the business development manager for the assets product for the bank. This is for the first half of the question. The second, what I'm asked from the government or the country, I'm always have a dream that one day the country will assign a ministry with the title of sales manager. He sell Egypt capabilities and Egyptian businesses and Egyptian tourism. He's a sales manager mentality or a sales manager background with a ranking or a title of ministry, or his job that he's doing a sales to the Egyptian capability and business.
Thank you very much. And May?
Yes, hi. Okay.
Hi.
My background, I think I shouldn't be the one, I shouldn't be talking about this really, but anyways, my background is entirely advertising and marcom. I recently moved into events when I opened the company with my partner, who is way more professional when it comes to event management. She's much stronger than me. So I handle the communication, the branding, and all of that. So yeah, that's my background. All the companies I worked in, by the way, are local, non-multinational. I was lucky enough to be in either very big local agencies when I joined them at the time, or The flagship was one, without mentioning names, that I joined when it was starting up, and I was there for plenty years, where I learned a lot and worked on several local and multinational and international brands that weren't even in Egypt. So no, I was never in a multinational, but I was always in an environment where I was able to learn a lot on the job, and that's, I think I was very lucky. It's entirely communication and marketing and account management, which I believe has helped me a lot in terms of knowing how to handle people and read people. And that's it when it comes to my previous knowledge. And my education has nothing to do with advertising or events. It's all on the job. And what do I need from the government? I think we're actually moving in very good steps when it comes to our field. So we're going in the right direction. But I would love to have a regulatory body where, because event management is a science, it's not an ad hoc job. In some parts of the world, people have to be certified, just like doctors are certified to work in events. Because in the end of the day, if you're running an event, you're in charge of lives. So you need to be capable. When you set up a stage, it has to be done in a certain scientific way. When you put up a screen, it has to be measured with in wind and all that. And so it is a science. So maybe one day we can have a body that makes sure everybody working in the scene is basically, capable.
Thank you, May. And Sharif Abaza, shall we have the last word from you?
I'll be very quick. So I'm very similar to Mai. Again, I don't have experience in a multinational. I've actually been an entrepreneur for the better part of the last 16 years. And yeah, I studied computer engineering, but I've not done that job for a day in my life. I've been in areas of events and marketing and advertising and tech startups and product management for the last 16 years on and off with different businesses. I'm in a different situation than the other founders simply because I have actually never owned a business in Egypt. I've operated outside Egypt for my entire career, and I've always wanted to go and set up a business in Egypt. When I ran for 12 years, I ran an event management company in the Middle East out of Dubai. And I've always wanted to set up a business in Egypt. And what stopped me every single time was that I didn't know the heads or tails of it. The communication was not transparent. And so I guess, things are going in a better direction when it comes to transparency around business formation and cost structures and regulations in Egypt, but it's still not there. And that's the one thing that always stopped me from going down to Egypt and setting up a branch for my operation there, is I always felt that I don't know enough and it's not transparent enough.
Well, thank you, Sharif. I hope the experiences of the others will encourage you. And we've now reached the end of our time. So it remains for me to thank our panelists and to thank the entrepreneurs who took part in the competition, and of course, the audience for their presence and participation. I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.